Well, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the worst kept secret in gaming, to the point where not even its developer is denying the allegations. After years of rumors, age ratings, fake websites, and more, at long last, Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced, a remake of the beloved 2013 classic, has finally been revealed. We learned everything about its new features, improvements, and content, but you won't have to wait long since it launches worldwide on July 9th. So how exactly has it improved on the original? What's staying the same? Let's dive into some of the biggest changes, starting with rebuilt with the Anvil engine. For Black Flag Resynced, the development team really had one defining goal: deliver the same story with the same protagonist, but, quote, elevated to a new level of immersion and realism. As such, the original experience has been rebuilt with the latest version of Anvil engine, which allows for pushing dynamism and gameplay further, according to director Paul Fu. Which is all well and good, but what exactly can you expect in terms of improved graphical fidelity? High-res textures and improved environments. Well, to start with, the remake is flush with high-resolution textures and enhanced lighting. Environments are far more detailed than ever. You can compare them side by side with the original just to see the difference. Towns look more packed, buildings appear more weathered, and the foliage is far more detailed. Per game director Richard Knight, these additions deepen the world, further maintaining your focus on Edward and his journey. Rebuilding every single moment. Of course, the developer didn't just stop there. Fu describes how, quote, every single moment had to be rebuilt, including the facial animations, which he felt to be the game's soul. As such, a lot of handcrafting went into the same to ensure that they look realistic while maintaining the spirit of the original's performance. Stranger tides and dynamic weather. Then there's the dynamic weather system, which makes every seafaring journey that much more unpredictable. Storms and rogue waves feel that much more harrowing and realistic, but even if you're just going through a normal rough patch of weather, it will affect the ship's overall handling. So kick back and enjoy the shanties, alongside some new ones, but always remain alert. Expanded underwater exploration. Another reason to keep your eyes peeled is underwater exploration. It's back and somehow more expansive, beautiful, and perilous than ever. So, as dangerous as the original sharks could feel, Resynced is probably going to up the ante even further and maybe offer some more rewards to boot. Overhauled combat system. For all the praise that older Assassin's Creed titles received for stealth, it was usually the opposite for combat. Black Flag wasn't bad per se, but it wasn't exactly the best either. Resynced tackles this by going for a more action-oriented experience, reworking it to include perfect dodging, staggers, and faster, more fluid attacks. One example is taking out an enemy from afar with your pistol and then instantly parrying an incoming melee attack. Oh, and speaking of which, perfect parries and chain takedowns. Better get that timing down because perfect parries will be your ticket to some serious damage. Thanks to different visual cues, it is easier to read enemy attacks. Parry them perfectly and you can chain up to 4 takedowns to quickly dispatch crowds. Otherwise, feel free to throw them into environmental objects or seamlessly switch between tools and weapons to get the job done. Improved parkour. Resynced is taking some cues from Shadow's brilliant parkour, offering more natural movement that flows more naturally and includes options like back ejects, side ejects, and free jumps. And whether you're quickly navigating towns, be it Havana or Nassau, or navigating skirmishes, the developer promises far tighter control and speed than the original. Freely crouch in stealth. Sneaking is also getting a small but significant upgrade. Edward can now freely crouch, so there are fewer chances of being detected. Granted, he won't be clinging to ceilings or going prone anytime soon, but being able to crouch whenever is one of those things that, well, it really should have been there in the original. It just fits the assassin profile that much better. Revamped tailing and eavesdropping missions. Even if fans can learn to love the combat, the same cannot be said about the tailing missions. They're simply a pain, especially if you're detected and immediately desynced. While the remake isn't completely disposing of them, or eavesdropping missions, you'll no longer fail when detected. Instead, your target will now react and even put up a fight, so you'll have to adapt accordingly. Interestingly, the development team mentioned, quote, all new interactions for multiple ways to progress in missions, so this may only be one example of a different approach. Jackdaw weapon upgrades. Who can say no to more firepower, especially in naval combat? The Jackdaw, home away from home for Edward and his crew, isn't just getting a few damage bumps. Instead, each weapon will receive an alternate fire option, further expanding on the ways that you can react in situations. Of course, this should also make it a more fearsome threat for anyone dumb enough to challenge you on the high seas. 3 brand new officers. Further adding to this area are the 3 new officers, Lucy Baldwin, the Padre, and Deadman Smith. Recruiting them will let you harness their abilities, like Smith's ability to grant double the shots to broadside weapons. However, you'll need to earn their trust by completing separate narrative questlines to coax them into joining up. Combined with the new Jackdaw upgrades, you can become an even bigger menace in the naval combat than before.
Take the fight to them! Your ears up!
New narrative arcs for Blackbeard and Steed. While new quests and content for these characters are great, what about the pre-established cast? Well, you can look forward to new narrative arcs for Blackbeard and Steed Bonnet. How many more hours will this contribute? Well, the team doesn't necessarily say, but we're not going to say no to tearing things up with our favorite pirate outlaws. No multiplayer or DLC. Now, unfortunately, there have been some compromises with Black Flag Resynced. The DLC and multiplayer modes have not made the jump, so you're not playing as Avalyn or Adewale in their own quests, or terrorizing your friends in the genuinely compelling PvP. Instead, the remake wants you to focus on the title's roots while updating it for a new generation, and the original will remain available. Is it somewhat disappointing? Well, sure, but at least the developer isn't spreading itself too thin and focusing more on what really matters. You can read that as the base game. New moments in modern-day rifts. One point that is still ambiguous, especially after all of the rumors, is the modern-day sections. Fu said that the modern-day rifts will feature new moments focusing on Edward's internal struggles. However, it wasn't confirmed whether you'd still walk around Abstergo, a core component of the original story. Time's gonna tell, but if it's any consolation, Jean Guston was the co-director of the original game and is now head of content on the franchise, and he said he couldn't tell where the old game ended and where the new one began. It just felt like playing Black Flag, and for millions of fans worldwide, that may just be enough. We're gonna find out firsthand when it launches later this summer.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.